my name's Kevin, and this is the Bible Artist Podcast, and this is the Bible verse discussion. We are, my friend Victor and I, and another friend Chad, we've been, over the past few months, we've been taking the story, the biblical story of David's time in the wilderness, leading a band of outlaws and people who are down on their luck while he's being pursued by Saul. And we've been trying to create a hypothetical TV show based on that. So we're not actually producing a show right now, but the ideas that we're putting together could potentially become a show. You know, if anyone has any rich benefactors that want to help fund us, we would love to turn it into a show. But if not, it's just a fun kind of creative exercise and a way for us to dig deeply into the biblical story in a kind of non-traditional creative way. So we're going to get to that in a moment, but before we get to kind of the main part of the show, I did want to give Victor a little bit of time to share about something that he's been working on.
As of today, I've just started going live with a new book that I'm writing. It's a Christian fantasy book called The Sojourners. It's book one of a series called The Chronicles of Valvatar. The basic idea of this story is reverse Narnia. That's kind of how I'm pitching it. And it's kind of like another way of looking at it is a cross between Game of Thrones and Narnia. So like imagine four young princes or young characters from the Game of Thrones world coming to Earth in reverse of Narnia. Instead of somebody going to their world, they're coming to our world. And while they're here, they're learning about our world and they're becoming transformed by it. Specifically, they're learning about Jesus and God and all the stuff that we know here. And then at the end of the story, or at least the first book, spoiler alert, they're going to go back to their world and they're going to realize that they're the only four people in this entire world who even know who Jesus is. So it's going to be up to them to evangelize their entire world. So imagine four evangelists trying to go to Westeros or Middle Earth or any other fantasy thing. Like, how would that even look? How would you start? How would you address all the different gods or religions or belief systems that exist in these other places? I mean, it's the same thing that any of the evangelists and disciples had to do here, even though they were known. But over there, they were Jesus is a completely unknown quantity. So I think it's kind of an interesting thing. So the first book is about these four characters coming over here and learning all kinds of stuff about Earth and Jesus, and then the stories, the lives that they lead here that prepare them to go back to their world, even though they don't know that's what they're doing. They're just over here living their lives, and these things are happening to them. So I'm publishing it online on Substack to where it's going to be a chapter each week until the book's done, and it's going to be for free, and you can go and read it at your leisure. And the website for it is vicdigital.substack.com. That'll get you there, and you'll see a big start here, and you can just start reading, and it's going to be free to read. And if you subscribe, you'll get a letter in your inbox every week with the latest chapter. And they're not going to be very long chapters. They're going to be segments of like each chapter itself is going to be broken down into 3 or 4. I'm calling them episodes. So right now you have episode 0, which is the prologue, and episode 1, which is the first part of chapter 1, are currently available, and it's going to start rolling out every week.
Yeah, and I'll just speak, like I got to read some of it, and yeah, it was really fun. A lot of like interesting world building, and I'm a fan of Lewis and Tolkien and that kind of stuff, and so it was really cool to see what Victor has done, kind of reversing the Narnia concept. And I'm really interested to kind of dig more deeply into the world that you've created, Victor. So I put the link in the show notes on YouTube, and so if you're watching this, definitely click that and get signed up for what Victor's doing, because it's
free.
Really interesting. Yeah, like a free novel for you to enjoy. And I like it being emailed to you, so it's like, you can just fit it in while you're on your phone at some point during the week. Just read through the latest episodes. So
it's kind of the way books used to be doled out. Dickens and a lot of the different people, they would serialize their books in chapter forms in like magazines and newspapers, and then collect them all into a book form. That's kind of what I'm going to do. Hopefully, at the end of this, is once I get through it, then I'll put it all together in a book and publish it like a real person.
Yeah, I really like kind of the neo serialized, like that was the whole idea, is like back in the day, like people would put them in magazines or send them out subscription style. So it's cool that we're kind of coming full circle back to that format now. Cool. Well, anything else you want to share about the project? He's got some really cool like visuals and like video stuff related to it also. So
I kind of made a show open, like the Game of Thrones show open. I have some cool music that I found, and I created a bunch of it's like a 1:40 long animation that is as if you're watching the TV show of the Chronicles of Alvatar, where you get to see all the characters, and it uses a stained glass motif, which to me kind of evokes some kind of, even if you don't know what the story's about, you get some kind of idea that there's a religious sort of tone to it. So the whole thing is like you're flying across a stained glass window with tons of images from the book. So that's kind of, I put that together. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed doing that.
Yeah. Well, and once again, hope you guys will check that out. But for now, we're going to transition to another story that we are putting together, and that is our Bible verse discussion, our show, David and the Outlaws, which once again, it's based on 1 Samuel, kind of roughly chapter 20 or 21 through 24, 25, I think. So we are taking the story of David, but David is not our point of view character. We're telling the story through the perspective of some of the men that were surrounding him. So we've kind of got a down on his luck debt slave who runs away from slavery and joins the Outlaws and becomes one of David's mighty men. We've got Abiathar, who was the only surviving priest when Saul massacred the priests at Nob, and we're actually going to talk about that story in today's episode, the premiere of the show. We've got Jonathan and his servant, who we decided is actually the son of the debt slave. And we've got the Hittite, who is, it's going to be like a reveal later on in the show that he's actually Uriah the Hittite, because he actually has a different name early on. You can go back to the last episode if you're curious about how all that works out. Anyway, I've got the season outline here for anyone who's interested. I'm not going to go into it in depth just because we've done that in previous episodes, and we're going to be actually really zooming in on episode 1, going through it like pretty closely through the outline and each of the different acts of the episode. I've also got a more of a summary format for episode 2. So we'll be hitting the first 2 episodes of our season and talking about kind of the story in those episodes, the different events that are going to be happening, some of the character development and stuff like that. And I've been putting these together over the past couple weeks, and Victor is going to kind of like walk with me through it, help me to kind of draw out some of the details, because in the outline format, it's kind of just bare bones. But there's a lot of kind of emotional things and character development that would be happening that isn't exactly captured in kind of the bare bones outline that we'll be going through. And so we'll kind of be discussing that as we move along. Okay, so yeah, this is episode 1 of the show, and this is kind of the what we're aiming for. So my initial thought is that the episode will start with a flashback to Jehoiada, who is our debt slave character. He's maimed. So I think we discussed my basic idea for him is he's either got like kind of a maimed hand or maybe a leg, something like that, so that he can't really function properly, but he he's still able to do some things and still potentially able to be a warrior, but he's severely disabled. So the episode would start with him. He's already been maimed, and he's kind of struggling to farm his land because of his impairment. He's got a son named Benaniah, and they're struggling to get by to farm their land when Doeg, the Edomite, who's going to be one of our villains in the show, he arrives to collect debt for them. Would assume that they have taken money or food or whatever from Doeg, and they owe him. And in Israelite society, if you couldn't pay debts, you could eventually become a debt slave. You could be taken into slavery to pay off the debt that you have incurred. And so because they can't pay, Doeg orders his men, he would have men with him, to take Jehoiada and sell him into slavery with another farmer. And he has plans for Benaniah himself. Like, he has use for him because he's a younger man. He's actually fit. He's more useful than the maimed Jehoiada. Victor, do we want to go through the entire act, or do you want to
let's get through this part. Let's get through the end of the flashback.
Okay. Yeah.
And then we'll
so that the flashback is just that first beat, but then the second scene is Jehoiada kind of waking up from that flashback, and so we see that he's living as a debt slave now to Nabal, who's going to be a character that comes up later with David. I wanted to kind of plant him here at the beginning of the show. He's got a hard life, working as a debt slave, and as he's working, he happens to watch riders riding past. It looks like they're kind of in haste, and there's something big going on. They're searching for someone. Maybe he's kind of discussing it with some of the other slaves, but then that scene would kind of close with him getting beaten for being idle, for not doing his work, and potentially knocked out, or at least kind of severely injured.
Do we have a sense of how much time has passed?
Yeah, I didn't put that in because I didn't really. I'm not entirely sure. I know we discussed the possibility of making it so that Benaiah? Yeah, Benaiah. That he has aged so much that we don't recognize him. But I'm kind of second guessing that. I feel like it might be hard to I feel like it might be kind of obvious that he's the guy. So I don't know if I want that. I don't know if we need that to be a reveal that he's the son of Jehoiada. So I don't know exactly how much time has passed. Probably not more than 5 years, and probably not less than half a year. Yeah, I don't know. Probably somewhere around 1 or 2 years is kind of what I'm thinking. Yeah. Do you have any other kind of questions on the events involved, or?
Not at this point. It's just just how much are we going to know about them? So yeah, just keep going. We'll have some more questions.
Okay, so from there we go into scene 3. So the transition. We've just seen these riders pass, and we can transition to a scene of a rider, the Hittite, who is searching for David, and we might kind of see him doing we might have it may not just be one scene. We may get a few clips of him looking for signs, or here and there, and that kind of thing. I'm thinking of the Hittite character as kind of a tracker, or someone who's skilled in looking for people, basically. So he's looking for David. He doesn't find him, but he meets with Doeg and reports kind of what he's found, because Doeg is his superior. We'll kind of set that up here. Doeg orders the Hittite to continue his search, but to eventually rendezvous with Saul's forces in Gibeah. And I think we'll kind of use this interaction to have Doeg kind of like set up a tension for the Hittites character. So Doeg will basically like promise, like, if you're ready to do what's necessary, there's a lot of rewards or a lot of advancement to be had. So he's kind of presenting the Hittite with, we're both, I'm an Edomite, you're a Hittite, but we can be good with Saul. We can get rich, we can get powerful. You just have to be ready to do whatever is necessary. And that's going to come back later on in the show. From there, then we'll transition to another key character, the priest Abiathar. It'll probably open up with him doing some kind of priestly things in the tabernacle context. And then eventually he'll see Doeg entering the tabernacle court. And Doeg is an Edomite. And so Abiathar will object to his father, who's the high priest, Ahimelech, that Doeg shouldn't be here. He's an Edomite. But Ahimelech will be kind of hesitant to get to like stop Doeg or whatever, because he's worried about Saul being mad, because Doeg is known to be Saul's servant, one of his men. And so, Abiathar or Ahimelech will want to just kind of play along with whatever Doeg is doing. But Abiathar will kind of push back and insist that, they answer ultimately to Yahweh and not to Saul. And eventually he'll convince his father to at least like detain Doeg for the time being until they can kind of figure out stuff there. Let me pause there because I feel like that scene might. Do you have any like questions about that or?
Well, okay. So just like how are we presenting the state of the world at this point? Like, that Saul is in charge and that, how much of that are we revealing at this point?
Yeah. So we'll want to betray like through these characters. Yeah. That Saul is king. It won't necessarily, they won't know yet that Saul is trying to kill David, because that's actually going to be part of the plot, is that they, and this is in the biblical text, when David comes to them, they assume that David is still serving Saul and he's on some sort of mission. So it's not going to be public knowledge yet that Saul is trying to kill David. So the priests, they're going to be respectful of Saul, even though they will kind of have knowledge that Saul, sometimes he doesn't fully abide by kind of the rules that Yahweh has set. But Saul has also kind of proven himself to be kind of a ruthless person. And so they're not going to want to mess with Saul, basically, because they don't want to get on the wrong side of a king who's kind of proven himself to be willing to do bad things to people who cross him. Does that kind of clarify? Or
yeah, well, I guess the overall thing is like, especially as we meet these people, how are we indicating whether the audience is supposed to like view them as like, oh, this is a good guy, this is a antagonist? It's like, what are the subtle things, like for the Hittite, when we first meet him, are we seeing him as a potential bad guy, for at least at the beginning? Because he is obviously he's working for the bad guys at this early point. But are we supposed to look at him and like wonder, it's like, oh, or is he going to do something that makes us think, oh, he's maybe not quite like these other guys. He's not quite the same level as Doeg. Or are we going to just let that happen later on, where he's going to be the a servant of the bad guys until he has some kind of thing that makes him flip?
Yeah, so I think he's gonna. We're not really going to be sure with the Hittite if he's going to be like a good guy character, or if he's just like another one of the like our point of view bad guy character that we're following around. And it won't be until kind of towards the later part of the third act, I think, where he's kind of impressed by Ahimelech's standing up to Saul, and he refuses to kill him. Like that's going to kind of be the moment where we realize like, oh, like maybe he's not a fully bad character, and kind of his trajectory over the course of the show is going to be him kind of going in a positive direction. We kind of talked about him as a character who starts off in kind of the good means but bad ends, I think, kind of that quadrant. So we won't really see too much of the good means yet. We'll see that more as he kind of takes that stand and refuses to bow to Saul's wishes and kill the priests. But yeah, at this point, he could just be like we could just be kind of advancing the villain plot there. Abiathar, on the other hand, we kind of do want to buy into him as a good character. Like he's like kind of insisting on, honoring Yahweh over honoring the ruler. Like I think that's something that most viewers will realize, like, oh yeah, that like he's got the right perspective there. So I think that's gonna kind of be the main indication that he's a good guy. And Doeg is kind of he'll just kind of have bad guy vibes a little bit. Yeah. And then I think as far as the other characters, I think we'll kind of just feel for Jehoiada as someone who's like down on his luck, gone through a lot, just trying to get by. So kind of our sympathies will be with him pretty naturally. I think one thing one other bit, going back to the flashback, scene 1, we might have him kind of object that he's been a loyal servant of Saul who fought for Saul's armies like earlier in his life, and fought bravely or faithfully, and actually got wounded as a result of fighting the Lord's battles. So we'll even more so be kind of behind his character and wanting him to get out of his difficult situation.
Okay. Is David on the run at that point in the flashback?
Not in the flashback. Yeah. So at that point, I mean, it is kind of a undefined period of time, but presumably, yeah, David would still be kind of serving Saul as like a general or a captain or whatever. Yeah. Any other questions on before scene 4? And then scene 5, to close things off, we return to Benaiah. So he's grown up a little bit, and he's now a servant in the household of Saul, specifically serving Saul's son Jonathan. And during that scene, this is a biblical scene. Jonathan is shooting arrows. There's kind of this whole setup that Jonathan and David had earlier on, where Jonathan said, like, I'm going to shoot in this way to show you, like, to indicate to you that Saul has proven himself to be against you, and I'll shoot the arrows this way to indicate that everything's safe. But what actually plays out in the scene is, like, after Jonathan kind of does the appointed sign, like, he doesn't want that to be like his only thing, and so he like sends his servant off to search for the arrows, and then he actually goes to David himself so that they can part and kind of pledge their continued loyalty to each other. And so we'll see, Jonathan kind of doing the arrow thing. We'll send off Benaiah, our servant, and Benaiah will go kind of searching for the arrows. And then when he comes back, he's going to see Jonathan and David kind of having this kind of emotional parting moment where they're kind of pledging loyalty and love to each other. But Jonathan won't see that he's seen it. So he'll kind of be hidden, kind of like looking on at the scene happening. And we'll kind of get the sense that, like, he's not sure what to do with this. and yeah, like that he's kind of worried about what's just happened. So we'll kind of set up that Benaiah he's very loyal. He follows Jonathan's orders. We'll probably just kind of like build him up as a reliable, humble, decent person through kind of his interactions with Jonathan, and also Jonathan as kind of a good example of humility and wisdom.
Now this is the audience's first meeting or scene of David. This is our introduction to him. So that's going to be, and Jonathan too, but especially David. So it's like, what all will we have heard about prior to this scene? What's the audience going to be thinking is David's? I mean, obviously they're looking for him, but it's like, what is the audience going to be thinking of David at this point?
Yeah, I think we'll maybe a little bit early, like at the beginning of scene 5, maybe we'll have like some other servants in the palace kind of murmuring about David and like how Saul is like searching for him, and we'll kind of build up that that David is like in trouble and Saul's after him, but he's also like this respected, renowned warrior in Israel. To some degree, I'm relying on the assumption that like most people who are watching this are going to know like that David is this legendary figure, and so like we don't have to. We can
not so much setting him up as like what are we going to set him up as? Like what is as far as the show? It's like, is he going to be a conflicted leader? Is he gonna seem legendary to us from the beginning, or are we gonna be? How are we gonna be introduced to him, and because he's not going to be a point of view character, so it's going to be important that we set him up.
I think at this point we won't be getting into kind of the conflicted nature, which eventually we will want to. We talked about how at different points in the story he's going to be kind of pushed and pulled between some people wanting him to be the man of strength and some people wanting him to be the man of faith. But at this point, we're not really at that stage. He's being seen from the perspective of Benaiah, who we talked about as being kind of younger and smaller, and so he'll kind of be looking up to David as kind of that legendary figure. He's seeing kind of these two legends embracing each other. So I think at that point, he's more of kind of the larger than life figure, and as the show progresses, we'll get to see him become more human through as like different characters get closer to him. Okay. Any other questions on Act 1 or? Okay.
I think that's good for here.
Okay, so then so Act 1 kind of sets up some of the conflicts for the episode, and then Act 2 we get to see those conflicts start to escalate. So we follow up the Benaiah scene with Benaiah and some of his fellow servants as they kind of are going through the royal complex or whatever. They see a man who is getting like publicly beaten or punished, and there's some sort of announcement that the man was aiding the son of Jesse, David, and that anyone who has information on David, like they must report it to Saul or his men immediately, or face like swift and severe punishment themselves. And so that's kind of that's putting a little more stakes to earlier we saw Benaiah, he saw Jonathan and David parting from each other. He's aware that Saul is after David, and now this scene is kind of establishing like if he doesn't do something with that information, he could get in a lot of trouble. And so we'll kind of leave him kind of questioning whether he wants to rat out Jonathan to Saul, or whether he wants to kind of keep that information to himself. Does that make sense for that scene?
Yeah, I guess it just kind of also depends on how we set Benaiah up. Is like, do we?
Yep.
Are we like with him as we like this guy from the beginning?
Yeah, I think so.
And
I think he'll be kind of I think we talked about him kind of being a smaller, like physically small character, and someone that's fairly pure as far as like, you know, not being cynical or whatever. But he, you know, he's worried because like if he holds this secret for Jonathan, then, you know, he could face severe consequences. So yeah, it's just kind of setting up like that he's gonna have to make this difficult choice. And yeah, I think we're gonna try to establish that he's a decent person. So we hope that he'll make the right choice, but we know that it's gonna kind of be difficult because he's gonna be worried about getting found out, just like this other servant got found out.
Okay.
And then from there, we'll go back to Abiathar. So Abiathar will still be at Nob. He'll see David arriving with a few of his men, not a whole lot of men. And David will approach Abiathar's father, Ahimelech. And this, again, it's a biblical scene. David, he requests bread and also the sword of Goliath. And Abiathar will take his father aside at some point, and Ahimelech will, Abiathar will kind of like discourage his father just because he kind of gets bad vibes. He's like, you know, why does David not have a sword? Why, you know, why is he in such a hurry? Why doesn't he have bread? Like all this doesn't add up. Which you kind of get that vibe in the biblical story that the priests are kind of worried and concerned about, like, what's going on here? What's up with this weird situation? But at the same time, Ahimelech, they just had this situation with Doeg where they detained him, and so Ahimelech is going to be hesitant about kind of continuing to obstruct Saul's men, because at this point they still think that David is serving Saul, that he's on a mission for Saul, and you know, there's no other kind of reason for them to not help David out. He's, you know, this heroic warrior that everyone respects. We'll get to kind of see them build up David and his reputation in their conversation with each other. But Abiathar is still going to kind of just have this bad feeling that like something bad is going down, and he'll kind of see Doeg, who's detained kind of in the complex of the priests. Doeg kind of like watching ominously, you know, he kind of gets the sense that Doeg is interested in what's going on with David as well. Yeah. Anything with that scene or?
No, I mean, just you know, just the opportunity for really layering in the sense that something is just not right overall in the whole Israel. You know, just things. It's like the people that are closest to God are not feeling good about things in general. Maybe they can't name it and figure out what it is yet, but I would even layer that back in, you know, from the first time we meet him, just kind of, you know, just a sense that something is just, everything's not clicking like it should.
Yep.
And they don't know why not yet.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And then from there, we return back to Jehoiada. So in the previous scene, he had gotten knocked out for being idle, and he is in this scene getting tended to by Nabal's wife, Abigail, who will eventually become David's wife after Nabal dies, but that'll be in several episodes from here. So we get to kind of establish Abigail as a merciful, kind character. She'll kind of talk to Jehoiada as she's helping kind of tend to him. She learns a little bit about his backstory, you know, that he was maimed and that he struggled to get by. that he has a son. He doesn't know where his son is. And so she'll have kind of pity for Jehoiada's situation and just the difficulties that he has gone through. She knows that her husband is a harsh man. Yeah, it's pretty clear later on in the biblical story where Abigail first comes up that she doesn't have like a high opinion of her husband. She's like, his name is Nabal, and he's named correctly because Nabal like literally means like fool in Hebrew. And so like she'll feel bad for this man who's suffering under her foolish husband. And so she'll kind of hint to or reveal to Jehoiada that Nabal has been summoned by Saul. Saul is collecting men to go seek after a rebel or one of his men that's run away, who's David. And so like she kind of like in her dialogue she'll be along the lines of like, oh, I hope no one tries to escape tonight because Nabal and a lot of his men are going to be off with Saul, and so things will be kind of less protected, or there will be less people watching. Does that make sense? Or and so that kind of establishes Jehoiada as like an opportunity to get away from this difficult situation that he's in. And then from there, we'll go back to Abiathar. Abiathar is even more worried. So last scene, we kind of had him and Ahimelech consulting over whether they should help David. And in this scene, we'll actually see Ahimelech give David the sword of Goliath. I don't know if we'll like see David eating the showbread or whatever. And we may also have them give David kind of the result of inquiring of God. I haven't decided exactly what David is asking. That's a good question that the text doesn't really give us. It might be like something like where he should go next or something. Although I don't know if that would fit with kind of the rules for inquiring of God that we've come up with so far. So we'll have to think through.
What's the reason for the exchange of the sword? How's that presented? Like why? How are we telling the audience that?
So in the biblical text, David is like, I was in such a hurry, I didn't take a sword with me. But Ahimelech's like, well, the only sword that we've got is the sword of Goliath. And David's like, that's the best sword there is. Please give it to me. In the biblical text, like it's a little questionable because him taking that sword, it kind of contributes to this sense that Ahimelech is supporting David militarily against Saul, even though that's not on Ahimelech's mind. I guess David just wanted like a really awesome sword. And so, yeah, maybe we'll just like really build like, we'll really want like a really impressive sword. And like, maybe it's just something that...
Will it feel like Excalibur? I mean, will it feel like there's something magical to it? I mean, how do we... I guess we make sure that there's not any kind of like, this is a magic sword kind of thing.
Yeah, not like magic, but just like really impressive.
It's got a lot of meaning to it.
Because like this is like a reminder that David is the giant killer. So maybe like someone can kind of reference. It would be good to like kind of have people remember how like David killed the giant, and this sword, it's got to be like pretty like massive too. So
6 foot tall.
Really kind of establishes David as this like mighty warrior character that like people are gonna like look up to and be interested in. So I don't know, just kind of in a negative sense, like it's David kind of leaning into that man of strength bit of his like persona. We probably won't like establish that too much at this point, but as far as like kind of the story, David getting this sword from Ahimelech, and Doeg kind of being aware of it, serves as kind of like proof, like false proof, that the priests are supporting David in his battle against Saul. Another thing to keep in mind is that we're told that kind of during this time period, the Philistines had almost like a monopoly on blacksmiths, and so swords were actually like extremely rare among the Israelites at this time. Especially like a couple decades earlier, they were extremely rare. Maybe they've grown like a little bit more common, but like not everybody has like a sword during this period. So that's another reason for David to get like kind of this really powerful, like strong looking sword.
It's just such a cool detail. It almost feels like we're making it up.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, the sword of
totally
Goliath,
there.
but it's so cool. Yeah, it's like, I mean, that's
it totally
really
feels like
detail.
a video game like moment or something.
All we've got is this sword of Goliath. What?
Yeah,
it's gonna be. Oh, it's one little weird side question. So, is David a small man, or is he a normal sized man? Are we? What's like? I know I've seen different things, but he was like a tiny boy. But did he grow up to be a? And I think even in The Chosen, it's kind of like a smaller guy they have playing him. So is there any kind of sense of him being a powerful man or a small man that is larger in
that's a good
stature
question.
than he is?
I would like to, maybe if we do get around to doing a casting episode, that would be like a good question.
But is there any sense in the Bible of his stature as an adult? Not that
I would
matters,
have to
but
like
it just
double
always
check.
interested me.
Yeah, I'd have to review, but the sense that I get is that like he's like a warrior. Like he's definitely not like scrawny. Dude. Yeah, like he's not like a Philistine. Like, so Saul is like noted for like being like very tall, like the Philistines. So David definitely isn't going to be like Saul height. Saul is going to be, we're going to want him to be on the taller range of Israelites, whereas like David is probably going to be more like average height, but like probably like jacked, like, you know, like he's going to be like pretty, when we're getting around to our fantasy casting, like he would be like a pretty like strong
he's like Aragorn sized.
Yeah. That's a good analogy, I would say. Yeah. Okay. Like movie Aragorn. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So like, you know, this large sword, average size guy, I don't know, it's just going to make him look pretty impressive. Like, I don't know if it'll quite be like Final Fantasy, you know, like where like the sword is like so massive that it looks like mismatched with his size or whatever. But like,
if the rest of the army doesn't necessarily have swords, then him having this Goliath sword is going to be almost going to feel like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I think anyway, going back to the scene, we'll get there's a typo there. It's supposed to say blesses David. So we'll have kind of like I feel like there could be like a good moment between Ahimelech and David. David at no point during this situation like warns Ahimelech or anything, but we could kind of just get the sense that like Ahimelech is like blessing David, that he's like a kindly old man. We'll want him, even though, you know, Ahimelech's gonna die, like we want that death to like affect us emotionally. So I feel like this could be like a good moment to show him as this like kindly, almost like not a father figure, but just like a father figure within Israel, blessing David.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like this is a worthy scene. You know, this is a worthy person is passing on something worthy to another worthy person.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. But then the scene will end with Abiathar learning from like a Levite or someone that Doeg has like broken out of his detainment, and so like we know like like he's gonna go tell Saul about all the stuff that he's found out. And then from there, scene 10, we go back to Benaiah again. He's going to accompany Jonathan to this like kind of mustering of men and warriors at Gibeah. And this is actually also a biblical scene. So Saul, we're going to have him, he's like received some sort of report that Jonathan is aiding David. And in the Bible, this just like kind of comes out. He like is speaking to a crowd and he's like, why didn't anyone tell me that that David is poisoned no, my son is like poisoned David against me or something. And so like we'll kind of like build up that revelation, because earlier in Act 2 in scene 6, we kind of put Benaiah in a situation of like questioning whether he should reveal kind of the information that he has about David and Jonathan meeting. And so when it turns out that Saul like has learned that Jonathan was aiding David, we're going to be like questioning like, oh wait, did Benaiah did he turn on Jonathan and reveal that bit of information? And yeah, just kind of the Saul will be doing this in front of kind of all of their men or whatever. We'll probably make it dramatic and have him like slap Jonathan or be really like angry and furious. And then he goes on to berate the crowd for no one helping him catch the son of Jesse. And he's like, is the son of Jesse gonna make you all commanders of thousands and tens of thousands? And so that'll kind of connect back to Doeg's promise to the Hittite, that if he's willing to do what's necessary, he could be put in charge of a troop, or he could become rich or powerful. Saul is basically asking the people like, I'm the one who's going to make you all rich and powerful and whatever. And we'll get kind of a little side scene where Doeg, as Saul is berating the crowd, Doeg's gonna arrive from Nob, and he's gonna report, that he saw the priest of Nob blessing David and giving him a sword and whatever. And so Saul's immediately gonna order his men to prepare to march on the city of Nob to find out how they've been supporting David. And as kind of the men are getting ready to go, Doeg's gonna take the Hittite aside and be like, this is your chance, prove yourself, that you can do what's necessary, and you can you'll get your chance to be advanced. So we're kind of like building up that the Hittite's going to have that moment where he's going to be asked to do stuff to do whatever Saul asks of him. And we may just assume that the Hittite is going to do it, but maybe we may kind of establish that he's kind of reticent or whatever. Yeah. So any questions at that point?
Just go back to scene 8. So whenever she's talking about her son, is it going to be in a way that we know that they're talking about Benaiah?
Oh,
or is she just going to be talking about her son, and we just kind of, if we figure it out, we know it, but if not, it's not explicit in the story.
Yeah. So just to clarify, it's not Abigail's son; it's Jehoiada's son.
Right, but they're talking about. We're going to know that
she's going to be talking about Benaiah. I think at this point, it's not worth trying to keep it ambiguous.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Because I feel like people are going to put the two things together. So he can probably talk, name his his son. And
Well, I was asking about it just because I think there could be a way to set up was Benaiah the snitch. You know, if any details in there, she could say like, you know, if only he could XYZ, he might be able to get out of his thing. To where maybe we could even think
that's good.
that's something. Oh, you know, he saw something. He could reveal that, and that could give him a leg up. You know, he could say, "Hey, look at me," and you know, I could get out of this or advance up into the standing of the servants or whatever. Just something where we could think, oh, well, you know, he's got a pretty good reason to snitch. You know, kind of almost. If it was him, we would think, you know, can't blame him.
Yep. I like that kind of advancing that little plot line, even though he's not on the screen. It's good. Yeah. Any other questions or ideas?
That's all good. I like. It's just a cool reveal of Doeg arriving because we know the information he's got.
Yeah.
Okay, so who is the snitch? I know we're gonna do we reveal that who it is, or does it end up not mattering?
So I think we'll have Jonathan reveal, like, it could either be the person that they already saw getting beat up, like that Benaiah saw getting beat up, or I also thought that, like, I have him here with like fellow servants, so it could be that we establish like one of those servants, and like we establish a way that they could have seen David like riding away or something, and like they put things together themselves, like independently.
Do we see what happens to them? Because I think that might be interesting. You know, if Benaiah would have done it, it would have been bad. You know, the guy got killed, you know, for being the messenger, or it's one of those kind of things to where, you know, it turns out bad that he was the one that revealed the stuff.
Oh, that's interesting. Or like alternatively, that servant could be like become like the favored servant. Yeah. So we see like what he like turned down because he like stayed loyal or whatever.
That could be somebody way down the line. Could be somebody to sacrifice in a battle or something, or in the court of the king or something. It's like, oh,
yeah, like he gets advanced now, but later on it doesn't turn out well for him. Yeah, I think that would make sense. Yeah. Good. Cool. Well, so yeah, in scene 11, oh, actually, we don't get to Benaiah yet. So scene 11, we return to Jehoiada. We've got him, kind of a sequence of him sneaking away from Nabal's like household, and we'll have him like seen or almost caught by like some sort of like overseer, or like so not, you know, obviously Nabal isn't gonna like completely empty his household, so someone like sees him and like tries to catch him, and would have some sort of kind of a little bit of like a chase sequence with him like running away, and Abigail intentionally sending the person who's chasing him in the wrong direction. So another opportunity to kind of reinforce Abigail as a positive character and just have like a little bit of tension for Jehoiada's effort to escape. But then he is able to run off in the other direction. And then scene 12, we return to Benaiah. So he finds Jonathan after the difficult meeting, and he's like worried that Jonathan is going to think that he's the traitor, and he tries to swear like it wasn't me, like please believe me, and Jonathan already like can tell, like he has just kind of a good sense of like reading people. He can like read that Benaiah is like a faithful person, we kind of see the Saul's men starting to march off to Nob, and it would just be an opportunity for Benaiah and Jonathan to kind of express like anxiety over like what's Saul going to do when he gets there, Jonathan can kind of like a little bit of just set up for now that we've kind of like established that they can trust each other. Jonathan kind of expresses the sense that like, yeah, I'm going to need, I need you to, stick with me. Like I need people that I can trust who are going to be able to help me out. We're going through a real difficult season. Yeah.
Well, this would be a good spot to plant the worst case scenario too. If this happened, this is the how bad it could get. So that way, we're at the audience. We know it's like, oh man, because Jonathan's like right there. He knows how bad it could get. And he's sharing that with Benaiah. It's like, this is what's coming. This is what I see. Where's where things are heading. So we have some kind of sense of like when David starts making decisions, it could lead to that or away from that.
Yeah, that's good. And then from there we go back to Abiathar. We're gonna have him kind of like sneaking into a tent, and he's like trying to get a hold of the ephod, which has got the Urim and Thummim. So we'll have established in earlier when David was leaving, we'll have established the ephod during that scene and its significance in inquiring from God for counsel in difficult times. And so Abiathar is wanting to get the Urim and Thummim because he's worried about not David's situation, but like their own situation and what they like, what's going to happen to them. But Ahimelech actually, he already kind of anticipated all this, and he already did use the ephod to inquire from God, and he's learned that Saul is coming to get them, and so he orders Abiathar to take the ephod, which is this precious relic, to take it and flee before Saul can get him. But like it's kind of too late for Ahimelech. We'll have the sense that like Saul's men are almost here or whatever. It'll be like a good moment for Ahimelech to kind of express like just the important, like he's going to trust Yahweh and face Saul. He's not afraid of him. A good chance to kind of set up the contrast of like, he's this man of faith who's willing to stand up to the man of strength, even though he doesn't, have any hope as far as like, physical violence or anything like that. He's willing to trust in Yahweh, even if that means facing his own death.
It's just kind of like the same thing that David faced against Goliath. It's just, there's no way I should win this particular conflict, but I'm going to trust that I will.
Yeah, and I like how you put that there, like that he trusts that he's going to like win this conflict, because we're actually going to realize, like through the Hittite storyline, that there is a sense in which Ahimelech triumphs over Saul, because it's going to be like through his willingness to face death boldly, that the Hittite is kind of impressed by that moment, and that kind of has a role in like encouraging him to like refuse to participate in like the massacre, because he's so impressed by Ahimelech's faith and his boldness. So Ahimelech will kind of triumph in that sense at the end. So speaking of scene 14, so the Hittite, he's part of the soldiers of Saul that march on Nob, he sees Saul, confront Ahimelech, threaten him, like accuse him of collaborating with David to try to overthrow him, and Saul tries to order Ahimelech's execution. This is a biblical scene again. The Israelites initially are like they're gonna refuse to participate because this is this is the anointed of Yahweh. These are Yahweh's priests. And then Saul's going to turn to the Hittite and tell him to kill Ahimelech. And like I said, the Hittite's going to be like so kind of impressed by Ahimelech's boldness that he's going to refuse. And so Doeg's going to ultimately need to do it himself. And Saul's going to order the entire city to be raised, and everyone, man, woman, and children, to be wiped out. And then we'll see Abiathar, fleeing with the ephod, as Doeg and some of Doeg's like loyalist men are slaughtering priests and burning down the town.
So when we say Doeg needs to do it himself, are we just saying he's just still ordering other people, or is he actually going to be like taking the sword himself?
I think we definitely want Doeg to do like I think Ahimelech, Doeg needs to be like the only one who does that. Like that, like, is just kind of establishing him as like
willing to do the dirty work.
Yeah. But then we'll have Doeg have like kind of his like
wipe them all out.
Yeah. Like he's got like his band of like goons who are like also willing to do the dirty work too. So once it expands to wiping everybody out, then he'll be leading them and slaughtering the priests and the Levites.
Yeah, it made me think of Kylo Ren, and I think Adam Driver would be perfect for this guy.
Yeah,
the same kind of intensity
totally was thinking
and...
I had like Kylo Ren and kind of the some of the like those Star Wars scenes in mind for just kind of how this like sets things up for the story. So
okay. Well, one thing is like, so every time we talk about the Hittite, it just kind of makes me feel, oh, we're gonna really do this guy wrong at some point. I feel bad for him. It's like, he's gonna be trying. We're gonna get to like him, but then we don't have good things for you in mind there, Hittite.
Yeah,
I like that though. Like, it's really cool. It's like we're gonna really, I think, learn to like this guy, and then there's gonna be that moment when, if you know your Bible, you're gonna be like, hold on a second, hold on, I think I know who that is. Oh no.
Yeah.
That'll be a cool moment. Sad moment, but cool moment.
Yeah, and actually, it's just
if
cool.
We can hold that out too.
Yeah, and thinking how we're kind of establishing him as this character who's like willing to resist the king, like his like kind of butcherous orders and stuff, and then he's down the road going to be the person who's betrayed by David, and like because other people aren't willing to resist David when David orders him to be butchered. So eventually like that's going to be a real like emotional scene when we realize like who this actually is.
All right, so the next thing, the explanation of the ephod, that's going to be if we were really doing this, that I think that would be the hardest thing to tackle, because this is not a thing that has been mentioned in mostly in any of the David stories. You just don't see it. It's like, and to all of a sudden say, oh yeah, by the way, there was this magic, clothing that he had that would do stuff, and it'd be like, wait, hold on a second, what? I don't remember hearing about that. So I mean, so that'll be tricky. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's to make it not feel like it's a magic cloak or magic shirt or whatever of some kind. That is just, oh, by the way, they had magic stuff, or things. That'd be tricky. But it made me also wonder, where is the Ark of the Covenant at this point in the story? What's happening?
It's not in the same city as, it's not in Nob. So
because it does come back eventually, right?
Yeah. So it got brought to a different city where it's kept until like David goes and collects it. So
So it does, but yeah, but it's after
that might
he's
be an
a king,
interesting
though,
thing
right?
to.
But I think if you can mention, the Ark of the
That's
Covenant
true.
as a setup to where Israelites have these things that are artifacts and that are
Yeah.
have very special, they're imbued with some sort of spiritual power of some kind, and you can say this is like that. It's a different kind of thing, but it's in the same family as the Ark of the Covenant. It's not magic, but it's
Yep.
it's blessed in some way.
In
And it'd be
some
kind of
ways, like,
because I think people would be saying like, "Where's the Ark of the Covenant?" I think that'll be a question that people will have, and you can have somebody say like, "Oh, if we ever get it back, or mention that they've got it." The Philistines have it, right? It's like in
no.
some.
So by now it's come back to Israelite territory. I think it's like in the household of.
That's right.
I think it's like Obed Edom or something like that.
But it's not. It's not in any official.
Yeah, it's not in like the tabernacle or anything, because like it might be because they kind of were having like difficulty like transporting it, or that would be a interesting topic to try to incorporate more.
It's just kind of neat, just like, oh, this thing is in the realm of these people at this time.
Yeah, and like in some ways, I'm okay if it almost does feel like a little bit like a magical thing. Like we'll clarify as the show goes along that like this isn't
it's not a genie
like
bottle.
Yeah, it's not the same as like magic stuff, but like people like have like those categories from fantasy stories or whatever, and so in some ways, like if initially that's kind of the category that they draw on, and they're like, okay, I guess it's some like magical object. Like I think that's okay, like early on for them to just get on board with the idea that like this is a important artifact. It's got these powers somehow, and we'll learn more about it as the story progresses. So yeah. And then finally, Act 4, this is our final act. The Hittite will see Nob burning. Doeg's going to scold him, going back to their earlier conversation, where Doeg had been telling the Hittite that he had to be ready to do whatever was necessary. Hittite, obviously failed to do that. But Doeg will establish that he kind of respects the Hittites' abilities as someone who is a tracker and is able to find people. And so he'll basically tell the Hittite that he has a chance to kind of make up for his failure. And he's going to order the Hittite to find Abiathar. Earlier in the previous scene, we might kind of establish that as like Abiathar was fleeing or whatever, he probably gets spotted by some of Doeg's men, but is able to get away from them. And so the Hittite is ordered to go find Abiathar and track him down and kill the last survivor of the massacre. And then we'll go to Abiathar on the run, and we'll get some kind of scene. We'll get a scene of like him maybe almost getting caught by one of Saul's men, but then he'll run into Jehoiada, who will like somehow like save him, like pull him aside into a cave or something like that. And as they meet, and Jehoiada learns like who Abiathar is and why he's running away and stuff, there's going to be kind of a moment where Jehoiada might feel a little bit of temptation to turn Abiathar in, because maybe if he does that, like maybe he can earn his freedom that way. But Abiathar is going to like remind Jehoiada that he's the anointed priest of Yahweh. We'll get to kind of draw that parallelism between like the priests are the anointed, but also Saul is the anointed, because Jehoiada is going, like when Abiathar points out that he's anointed, Jehoiada is going to be like, Saul's anointed too, but he's also got like spears and soldiers and stuff. So, what can you do for me? And Abiathar will promise to lead Jehoiada to David, who can provide some sort of sanctuary for both of them. Yeah. So far, any questions or?
I like that. I think it's a good opportunity for where's I going with that? That hold on, my brain just had a brain freeze. Hold on. So Abiathar and Jehoiada are talking, and hold on, sorry, I had a thought and it just completely went out of my brain. Keep on talking and I'll come
okay. Yeah, I'll keep going. So then we'll go back to the Hittites, still tracking Abiathar. He'll have like a few of Doeg's men with him. And we'll have like, just to kind of establish like the Hittites like strengths and like just him as a formidable character. We'll probably have some sort of like trick that Jehoiada probably tried to do to throw off like their trail and get the people to go in the wrong direction. But the Doeg's men will almost be fooled by the trick, but the Hittite, like he's got just kind of superior tracksmanship, or that's not the right word, but whatever. And you could even kind of like weave in one of our themes of like being led by appearances versus kind of being led by like deeper insight, even though like at this point the Hittite isn't being led by like Yahweh, but he still has like kind of deeper insight in the sense of being able to see what's like not really there. And then we'll go back to Abiathar and Jehoiada, fleeing some more, and because the Hittite is so good at tracking, they'll realize that the men are gaining on them. It's not looking good for them, and so this will provide Jehoiada with a kind of hero moment where he volunteers to lead Saul's men off in the wrong direction, because he doesn't mean anything to them, and so if they catch him, like he'll be like it won't be a big deal, even though like we'll get the sense that like if they did catch Jehoiada, it probably wouldn't be good for him. Mm-hmm. But he can at least tell that to Abiathar to in order to kind of justify taking the action. So he'll go off in one direction while to draw the men away. But once again, we'll see the Hittite kind of seeing through the ploy. He'll still tell his men to go after Jehoiada, but he'll go back for Abiathar, and we'll have him like about to get Abiathar when like suddenly I'm kind of picturing like Dune, where like the people are like appearing out of the sand and stuff. David and his men like appearing like out of nowhere, like hamstringing if they have like horses or whatever, like hamstringing the horses or whatever, and like holding everybody at sword point. But then David will spare the Hittite. They'll probably like strip them all of like all their weapons and stuff like that. And then David will send him back to Saul with a message, basically being like, I've been your loyal servant. I don't want to fight you. And so that'll kind of like keep kind of the Hittites, his like kind of character trajectory, like through that moment, he'll see that like David is like a noble character, and he'll start to kind of like question his decision to be serving with Saul, even though he'll still be on Saul's side for a bit. And then David will he'll have a quick meeting with Abiathar and Jehoiada, where he'll offer them protection and welcome them to the Outlaws.
Well, I remember what I was going to say, and it actually ties in really good with everything we've been saying. So going back to Abiathar and Jehoiada talking to each other, it would make sense that Jehoiada would be like, well, Saul's got to go. Saul's the bad guy, which is kind of going to be what the audience's point of view is. Like, this is the emperor. This is Darth Vader going bad. But at this point, we really see Abiathar. It says, no, he's anointed. Saul is too. It doesn't matter. This is still God's anointed, and that's kind of like even though mankind's idea is like this, he should be overthrown, he should be brought down. It's still God's will that this guy is the king right now, and that's how we have to act. And that's what David's point of view is going to be. That a lot of people aren't going to understand, and even the audience is going to be like, "Why don't you just go and kill him?" But that's a good point to show those two characters, especially Abiathar, who's like on the run. If anyone would like to get rid of Saul, to get rid of this, death sentence on him, he'd be the one. But even he's like, that's not the way it's supposed to be. There's a way obeying God looks like this. It sometimes looks like, it sometimes looks, it doesn't look like what you would think it's going to look like. I think that'd be an interesting
eventually
thing to set up. Because we're going to come back to that theme a lot, where a lot of people are going to be like, why aren't we doing this other thing? Well, that's not how the Lord wants us to do it.
Yeah. So. And eventually, I think we talked about Abiathar trying to get David to kill Saul. But yeah, like at this kind of early stage, like maybe he's,
that'd be even better, because he will forget his own words later on.
And
that can even come maybe through Jehoiada or somebody else, like reminding him of the very things he said at some point. I went and did. I helped you out because I believed in what you were saying. I'm here now, so we're gonna go through with this. The right way.
That's good. Any other stuff from those final scenes?
No, that'll all be real. That'll be a cool scene.
Yeah, I feel like it. Hopefully, it kind of like builds like tension and like that final act is like a little more like action packed and but kind of like brings together all the different storylines and stuff. We don't come back to Benaiah in the final act, but I feel like it's okay for like we're juggling like a lot of different characters, so I feel like it's okay just that we like kind of we do we do a decent amount with
we could mention him in one of the discussions.
Oh yeah,
we'll be able to point out like he's a lot of what Jehoiada's want to be doing is for his son.
Yep, that's good. Like he wants to get away to find his son, so we're remembering him even if he's not on screen. Cool. Okay, and then don't worry if you're actually watching through to this point. We're not going to go through episode 2 in nearly as much detail, so I just have like a section per act, basically. But the kind of in summary, the second episode, Abiathar and Jehoiada, they're going to kind of be introduced to the Outlaws. Jehoiada will get like his first mission with them. We'll have Abiathar kind of like processing through, his entire family, his entire city just got slaughtered by Saul. So he's going to be processing through his feelings towards Saul, his feelings towards David, because David is partially to blame for what happened as well. And we'll also have Saul going after David's family. That's going to be part of Jehoiada's mission. So really quick. So yeah, Act 1, we're going to have Abiathar and Jehoiada led to the hideout. So that's going to immediately follow the end of episode 1. Jehoiada will soon befriend Abishai and Asahel. So David, he's got 3 nephews who are like really, 2 of them are like really, really important characters. Well, one is like the most important, Joab. He's like David's general. Abishai is kind of like the thug brother. and then Asahel will eventually get killed off later on in Samuel, but he's kind of like the younger and quicker brother. So anyway, we'll get Abishai and Asahel. They're just like at this point kind of two mighty men for us to follow. They're going to recruit Jehoiada to go with them to Bethlehem. At this point, they're not like they're just going to kind of like scout things out, get some supplies from the people there, because if you've got hundreds of people that are hiding out with David, you're going to have to get your supplies from somewhere. So presumably they're getting supplies from friendly towns like Bethlehem that want to support David and other sons of Bethlehem. So they'll recruit Jehoiada to go with them. Meanwhile, Abiathar, he's going to be grieving what he saw happen to his family. He's going to also be like have some tense exchanges with David, because he's going to partially blame David for the massacre and not like warning them about Saul and not doing anything to try to protect them. And he'll also kind of want blood, so like want some vengeance, not on David necessarily at this point, but on Saul. So we might have him kind of already like be having kind of a grief reaction, like wanting to get back at Saul for what he did. And David is going to like be kind of a mentor figure, kind of affirming kind of what Abiathar is going through, and probably like regretting not like warning them and stuff like that, acknowledging that he should have, but also like insisting like they're not going to go to war with Saul and start like a civil war. And then Jehoiada, Abishai, and Asahel are going to leave, but David's going to forbid them from, like, if they encounter any of Saul's men, he's going to forbid them from shedding blood. And we'll also establish that the Hittite, he gets back to Doeg and Saul's people, and he's sent back once again to make up for his failure. He's going to get sent to Bethlehem to go retrieve David's father Jesse and bring him back to Saul. Act 2, the Hittite will arrive in Bethlehem. There will probably be like kind of a scene where like the people of Bethlehem are milling about, and he's demanding Jesse. But Jesse will like just be quick to come forward and be like, "I'm Jesse," like, and like the people of Bethlehem will be like hesitant. They'll be worried that Saul's going to have him killed, but the Hittite will promise that he means him no harm, at least, and he's just here to bring him to Saul. Jehoiada, Abishai, and Asahel, they're going to try to, they'll see Jesse get taken before they can get there to stop it. And so they'll try some sort of way to kind of ambush the Hittite and the men that he has with him without killing them. But in the midst of what goes on, the Doeg's men or Saul's men are going to fight back violently, and Asahel's going to get injured, in some sort of way that's not fatal, but could be serious if it doesn't get treated. Abishai is gonna just want to keep go all out and just fight back and ignore David's orders to not engage. And Jehoiada will have to pull him back and convince him that they need to get Asahel back to the camp to get better, or to get help, and they need to get other help to be able to help Jesse anyway. Yeah, do you have any thoughts there?
Oh, good.
And then Act 3, the Hittite is going. So I think when earlier in Act 2, when Abishai and the men, like when they kind of ambush the Hittite, and it'll be like a small band that he's got with him, just like a few people, and so like they'll be like worried that that more of David's men are going to come, and so he'll decide to like take Jesse and his band off like the main road and into the wild. But like along the way, we'll have him potentially like attacked by beasts, or like I thought about like there being like a storm or like some sort of kind of occurrence that like things go badly basically for them as they're like trying to avoid a counterattack that they're expecting from David's men. And as a result of that, kind of the other men that are with the Hittite are going to get killed off. But we'll kind of establish Jesse as like a noble character because he'll save the Hittite. Meanwhile, they'll Abishai and Jehoiada will bring Asahel back to David's camp. Abiathar, I thought, because the priests are sometimes they deal with like kind of inspecting people, and they're also like they're cutting up animals and stuff like that. Like he might actually have more experience and knowledge of like dealing with like injuries and blood and things like that than your average person. So he can kind of be like a surgeon to like maybe he removes like a like an arrowhead or something from Asahel or something like that. Then like the outlaws are gonna plan like what to do, how to like try to find Jesse. But the problem is like their scouts haven't been able to find any sign of Jesse on the road. But Abiathar realizes that he might have a way to help, which we won't clarify at that point, but it'll be the ephod. So then Act 4, as the Hittite, so it's just him and Jesse at this point in the wild. He'll somehow be injured in a serious way, where he's like not sure if he's gonna be able to make it, and so he just decides to let Jesse go. Meanwhile, like once Jesse is let go, he'll wander for a bit, but it'll turn out that the outlaws are able to find him because Abiathar used the ephod. We'll get like kind of a emotional reunion between David and Jesse, and that reunion will be like even more emotional for Jehoiada and Abiathar, because Jehoiada is missing his son, and Abiathar is grieving his father's death. So that'll kind of spark them to kind of like process through some of the things that they've been feeling and grieving. But they'll also realize that they've kind of found a sense of purpose with the outlaws, because they both got to help with bringing this about. Then we'll get kind of like some closing scenes of like the outlaws bringing Jesse and some of David's family to a fortress in Moab. But the leader, and this would be kind of a quicker scene, the leader just kind of indicating to David that they'll take Jesse and family, but David can't stay there because they don't want to provoke Saul. And so David and his men are going to need another place for them to stay. And that's like a setup for episode 3, which will start with the story of like David the first time David tries to flee to the Philistines. And then meanwhile, the Hittite, he is fortunately able to make it back. and he's gonna just claim to Doeg that Jesse was killed, because Doeg has no way of knowing what happened to him. So that's a quicker summary of episode 2.
So is Hittite are we going to indicate that he had some kind of turn at this point? The reason why he's claiming Jesse's dead? I mean, he doesn't think Jesse's dead. So
I think
are we going to say there was something happened in that interaction that we will understand as an audience that he's changed in some kind of significant way?
So I think it's still like a partial change. Like he's grateful to Jesse for how Jesse helped him earlier in the episode, and he's willing to let Jesse go, and to play off that he's dead. I mean, he could think that Jesse's actually dead, but even if he thinks that it's possible that he's not, it's not necessarily that he's fully like he's like fully on board with like David and his men or whatever, but it's kind of like his way of like paying his debt to Jesse, having helped him out. So it's a way to kind of establish like kind of his growing, like he's not fully against Saul, he's not like a spy or anything at this point, but he's like in little ways we're seeing
he's got a moral code of some kind that transcends loyalty to the bad guys.
So this is like an episode to establish that a little bit more, and for us to see like that he is this like decent character, even if he is working for the bad guys still at this point.
That's all. So when we say the Hittite gets injured, is it in that animal attack as well, or is that probably a separate thing?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's all part of the same...
it would probably be where like the other men are killed and the Hittite, like, he's probably injured, but not. It's like the kind of thing where he's able to get by for a little bit, but then, after a little while, like his injury is like starting to, like he's losing blood, or like he's starting to struggle. So it'll like not necessarily be a surprise, but like we'll leave off with him like where it's like, is he gonna make it back or not? And then we won't see how exactly he makes it back, but just it'll like kind of speak to his endurance and his like that he just kind of had the fortitude to keep going and survive.
Yeah, as far as his surgery thing, I mean, if you just say that he's like, let's say that the Hittite has like a major cut on his leg or something, like an artery's been, but he can say it's like, well, I've seen enough animals bled out in my time sacrificing to know we got to get this thing closed off, or just that could be one way, to show that it's like he needs to do the opposite of what a sacrifice looks like.
Something like that.
You've just been basically cut in a way that we sacrifice oxen or whatever, and if we don't do that now, you're gonna bleed out in 2 minutes.
Yep.
But you could also have it to be, it's like, well, I was also a medical guy, and in my younger days.
That's true.
There's a bunch of different ways.
If you're using like a lot of blades and stuff, like presumably like you're also going to have to learn how to deal with like if someone nicks themselves or stuff like that. So
or you can even say that like I've cut myself so many times sacrificing lambs or whatever that it's a second nature. It's happened.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is all really good. I mean, this is looking like a real TV show.
Cool. Well, it's been fun to put this together. So, in a couple of weeks, we'll try to follow up. I'll probably be doing something more like the episode 2 summary with most episodes, just because like yeah, it was a lot to go through episode 1 like beat by beat.
And maybe just take a couple of scenes to flesh them out.
That's true.
The
Like we
ones
could
that
like
are the
kind of
most
expand
interesting.
out. Yeah, like maybe choose like one act to really go in depth into, or something like that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, it was fun to start like imagining it, and yeah, I think eventually I'll probably I doubt that I'll do scripts for like every single episode, but I think I might do one for episode 1. So yeah, maybe at some point we could like act it out or something too. That would be fun. But that would probably be a ways down the road. Yeah, not in the near future. So
well, I've got some actor friends that are doing a lot of the stuff that's happening in Texas right now. So I could maybe, and one of them has been in a bunch of my short films. And I could say, hey, you think you could get 10 people together and we could do like a Zoom act out of, or a table read of the script. It'd be kind of cool.
That would be a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for jumping on with us. Reminder to check out Vic's Substack novel, and so it's the Sojourners. Again, the link should be in the show notes. Yeah, you have any other final thoughts, Nick or Vic? Or
no, I think we're good.
Cool. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and Godspeed.